have been told that smile is currently a hashtag for Buddhism. It's so embarrassing. Vimalakirti would never have tolerated it. If he were alive today, he would ruthlessly rip apart and demolish the so-called spiritual teachings that are currently being touted as the truth. What would he have to say about Buddhism's smile hashtag and using mindfulness as a therapy, I wonder?
If Buddhism must have a hashtag, it should be meditate and don't meditate at the same time. Otherwise, you're not doing it right, which is what Vimalakirti said to Shariputra. He also said you should meditate as if you were already a stainless, immaculate, sublime being, but without giving up your ordinariness. Be sublime, but don't be mundane. That's how you're supposed to meditate. Of course, you must also concentrate and you mustn't get distracted, but that shouldn't stop you from using your senses.
When we hear the word meditate, what do? Many of us immediately close our eyes and attempt to escape our present reality. Vimalakirti seems to disapprove of this approach. Beginners often find that closing their eyes helps. But if you have to close your eyes, shouldn't you also block your ears and your nose? What about touch? What about all the feelings that come through your skin? And the most difficult one of all, how do you block off your mind? Yet, even if you manage to do all that, it's not possible to perfect meditation merely by turning off your senses. And it's my guess that this absurd blocking out is what Vimalakirti is making fun of. But I must repeat that I can barely fathom a fraction of what is going on between Vimalakirti and Sthaputa in this one sentence, let alone in the rest of the sutra.
Okay. Madhyayana. Madhyayana is another big name in the Buddhist Sangha. He was also in the Buddha's inner circle and one of his closest apprentices. Becoming the apprentice of the Enlightened One was probably something like giving up your studies at a highly respected art school to become the apprentice of a great sculptor or artist. Certainly, many of the great arhats dedicated their entire lives to the Enlightened One, whom they followed like shadow.
If you were to bump into Madhyayana, you would probably mistake him for the Buddha himself. It was as if he had been cast from the same mold. In the sutras, Madhyayana and Sariputra appear together more often than not, and temple murals usually place Sariputra on Buddha's right and Madhyayana on his left. Amongst his many other great qualities, Madhyayana was a well-known and powerful miracle worker.
It was quite natural then for Buddha to turn to Madhyayana after Shariputra had declined to visit Vimalakirti on his behalf. Would Madhyayana accept the commission? No, my lord, replied Madhyayana, with the same gesture of devotion and respect that Shariputra had offered. Another response, and one that must have been both bewildered and fascinated on the other disciples. Who was this man? Chavi Vimalakirti, and why were two such accomplished arhats, the mightiest of all the Buddha's disciples, doing their utmost to avoid him? I don't think I'm quite up to it, said Madhyayana. He then went on to describe what had happened the last time he and Vimalakirti met.
Okay. Madhyayana was teaching in a large gathering of lay people when quite suddenly Vimalakirti appeared before him, and if as out of nowhere. Madhyayana, said Vimalakirti, you shouldn't teach the Dharma like that. Imagine this happening today. Imagine a famous contemporary Buddhist teacher being interrupted by a shiny little man with long black hair, a diamond crested gold wristwatch, and a very fat, very expensive cigar clenched between his whiter than white teeth. Imagine the look on the teacher's face when the man said, "You shouldn't teach the Dharma like that." How would the teacher's symphonic, Socratic students react? How dare he tell our perfect master how to teach? Perhaps.
Does Cassie have a question?
Cassie, what's up?
So we're on page 17 here. In last class, we were on page 57.
Yeah, we've done this before. We've gone through this.
It was meant to be.
So I think I missed that part. So thank you.
I was surprised that we were at 17 after all these times. And I had written down top of 17. I don't know why.
We had things to learn.
Probably because I couldn't figure out the alphabet.
Probably
You're in good company, Head.
Probably It's the root of all the issues.
We
Maybe-
did Shariputra, so
Did we do Shariputra? Okay.
So I don't know if we did all of Shariputra. So where this is 57.
I think we did all of Shariputra because they talked about how wonderful
Wait.
he was and how they were.
What are you saying, Milen? You're muted.
I was saying that
The unthinkable, because this is where we were.
Great.
I remember saying this.
Wonderful.
Maybe even wrong, but
the last paragraph we didn't read, but I think it's irrelevant.
The last paragraph?
Yeah, before the subtitle.
But keep going.
Oh, I see. This paragraph here?
Yeah, but maybe we should ignore it.
We can read it. Whose turn is it to read? Yours, Milen?
Yeah,
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Vimalakirti's refutation of Sariputra's insistence that he does want Dharma by exposing what wanting the Dharma really means is long and again often sarcastic. But when he had said all he wanted to say, Vimalakirti miraculously summoned enough of the most beautiful thrones in existence for every one of the Buddha's great disciples to have somewhere to sit. But there was a catch. The thrones were gigantic and impossibly high.
Yeah, I think we've gone past this. I mean, I
I think
remember
so
the
too.
impossibly high and people talking about how do you get up onto a high throne and
The Bodhisattvas jumped onto their thrones without any trouble, but for some reason the Arhats couldn't.
we talked about prostrating to Mir Rupradiparaha. Why all the drama? Yeah, I remember why all the drama.
So if you wrote down 17, couldn't it be 71?
71?
I remember that picture.
I do too.
I don't remember a goddess though.
I didn't remember the goddess, but I was thinking, well, if you wrote down 17, maybe we were on 71.
That would be me.
That would be me. But I don't remember the goddess at all.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm with Donna. I don't remember the picture of the raven. I don't remember protective love. I don't remember Vimalakirti talking about love.
Should we
Yeah,
start
but-
here?
The raven, we saw it.
Okay, good. Good to know.
Can we start here?
Okay. Vimalakirti goes on to describe various kinds of love: protective love, pacifying love, painless love, innate love, love that isn't contradictory, non-dual love, unmoving or imperturbable love, stable love, pure love, love that defeats enemies, natural love, Buddhist love, Bodhi's love, generous love, disciplined love, patient love, diligent love, sincere love, wisdom love, skillful love, love that isn't hypocritical, love that doesn't deceive, love that has no price tag, blissful love, etc. Then he describes compassion, joy, and equanimity, all of which are achieved when the Bodhisattva knows that sentient beings are like the reflections of the moon in the water.
The goddess. Meanwhile, a goddess has been eavesdropping on their conversation. She was so impressed by this remarkable outpouring of Dharma that as she rejoiced wholeheartedly at all she heard, she scattered flower buds and petals all over the Arhats and the Bodhisattvas as an expression of her devotion. The flowers landed on the Bodhisattvas and slid off gracefully to the floor, but those that landed on the Arhats stuck fast, as if it was considered unseemly for colorful flowers to appear to adorn the austere robes of the I don't know that one.
Renunciant.
Renunciant. The Arhats tried to shake them off, but they would not budge. Some Arhats even resorted to magic to try to remove them, but the goddess flowers stayed right where they were.
Similar stories exist in the Zen tradition, like the one about two monks who were about to cross a river with a girl who also wanted to get across, asked for their help. The older monk immediately picked her up, carried her across the water, and set her down on the opposite bank. Later, the younger monk said, "You are a monk, yet you agreed to carry a female across the river. How could you do that?"
The older monk replied, I left that girl behind us on the riverbank, but you are still carrying her. The same principle and wisdom applied to the sticky flowers. For the arhats, the flowers were a kind of stain, whereas for the bodhisattvas, they weren't.
This will be interesting to see how this actually is depicted in the sutra itself, because it's a key difference between the Mahayana and the Theravada, where the Theravadins have arhats and the Mahayanas have bodhisattvas, and whether that's just the writer's view, or I'm just really curious how what the story is in the sutra.
Once again, Shariputra is challenged, this time not by Vimalakirti, but by the goddess. And this is where the Vimalakirti Sutra becomes even bolder. Isn't liberation to be free from anger, desire, and ignorance? Asks Shariputra. Isn't that liberation?
No.
So you can see the whole picture.
Such teachings are only given to those bloated with pride, replied the goddess. Those who are not proud already know that there is no such thing as anger, desire, and ignorance, and that there is therefore nothing for them to shrug off.
I think I'm next. This exchange was disconcerting for Buddha's Shravakayana monk disciples, who were bound by the disciple of the Vinaya and therefore tended to avoid women. It may also have made some of the followers of the Mahayana a little uneasy, but it was far worse for the monks. For a woman to have the audacity even to discuss such teachings with a perfect, pure, and highly accomplished monk was almost intolerable. Nevertheless, Shariputra's conversation with the goddess continued.
What went wrong? Asked Shariputra. What happened to you? What do you mean? Replied the goddess. Well, you're a woman, said Shariputra. What did you do in past life that caused you to be reborn as a woman in this one? What are you talking about? Said the goddess, irritated. I've been living in this house for 12 years and I've never even seen a woman. So-called man, woman, and gender, she said, are as non-existent as magician's magic, or a reflection of the moon in the water, which may look clear and complete, but has no inherent existing nature. She then goes on and on about how wrong it is to think in terms of gender, and cannot understand why Sariputra is so obsessed by it. To make her point, she magically changes places with Sariputra. In an instant, he finds himself in her body and she in his. Is there anything wrong? She asked.
Well, I certainly look very strange, replied Sariputra. But apart from that, being a woman isn't much different to being a man. They now talk about how appearances are deceptive. What makes you think I am a man? Because you saw me in a man's body for a few decades? Is that your only reason? If it is, it's a pathetic reason. And the same argument is applied to why we think a woman is a woman.
Eventually, they both have another magical sex change and return to their previous forms. So, where is your female form now? Asked the goddess. It is no more, replied Shariputra. And they discussed what is meant by no more. As there is no such thing as truly existing gender, they said, how can it change once, let alone twice?
This conversation about gender equality took place near the beautiful and remote north city of Vasali, in the presence of perhaps the most significant and consequential spiritual practitioners alive at that time. And it happened more than 2,500 years ago, centuries before the Christian and Islamic religions were founded, and more than 2 millennia before the French writer Olympe de Gouges published her Declaration of Woman and Female Citizen in 1791. And the English philosopher Mary Wollstonecraft added her feminist voice with A Vindication of the Rights of a Woman in 1792.
Manjusri. These days, people put a great deal of effort and money into fulfilling their dreams. Some save for months just to fly to Chicago to attend one of Oprah Winfrey's live talk shows, or to visit England to watch Liverpool FC play at Arrowfield. The people who lived during Buddha's lifetime had quite different dreams. They would dream about having the opportunity to witness conversations like those that took place between Manjusri and Vimalakirti, which can now be read in Vimalakirti Sutra.
Don't forget, not only were these conversations inspired by the Buddha himself, but the audience included Sariputra, Madhyayana, Kashyapa, several kings and queens, fabulously rich merchants, warlords, everyone of consequence, and many ordinary Vaisali citizens. They would all have been hanging on every word, not daring to so much as clear their throats. So eager were they to catch every syllable these two great bodhisattvas uttered.
What makes a Buddha? Having examined many profound subjects, Vimalakirti asked two very significant questions. The first was, what makes a Buddha? Meaning, what ingredients or components go into making a Buddha? It's a bit like asking, what is the recipe for Korean kimchi? And the second question was, to which family or caste does a Buddha belong? Today, it's not easy for us to understand these questions, but back then they were considered extremely relevant. Historically, certain jobs were always given to those born into specific families and social backgrounds. Until very recently, for instance, the highest political and social jobs in England were given almost exclusively to men who had been educated in public schools like Harrow and Eton, and the Prince of Wales is always expected to become the next King of England. The same can be also said for the other end of the social scale. No one is surprised when the son of a cobbler makes excellent shoes. Similarly, the people of Buddha's time would have expected Buddhas to have been born exclusively into specific castes or families.
What are the components or ingredients that make Shakyamuni Buddha a Buddha? Must blood run through a Buddha's veins? Is a mouth necessary? And ears? Is there a special Buddha DNA or a code that gets passed from one generation to another, like the DNA that causes hereditary high cholesterol? What is it that has the potential to become a Buddha? Potential in the sense that milk has just the potential to become yogurt. Is Buddha just a historical figure? Meaning, is Buddha only ever the Buddha we are depicted as we see depicted as statues and on temple walls with a lump on his head and curly hair, who is the son of Suddhodana and Maya? What are we referring to when we say Buddha?
By now, Vimalakirti was no longer answering Manjushri's question. Manjushri was answering Vimalakirti. And how touching and how beautiful that Lord Manjushri began referring to Vimalakirti not as a patron, but as the son of a noble family. And you want me to read the?
Sure.
The translation of Sutra used in the less specific rendering noble, oh, thank you, noble sir, here for the, oops, sorry, for the Sanskrit term Kulaputra, Tibetan rings Kai Bu, which in both languages means literally son of or the family. In the sutras, this horrific form of address, and also the equivalent daughter of or the family, is used in many dialogues when the Buddha or senior bodhisattvas are speaking of or to disciples, and is sometimes interpreted as meaning the sons or daughters of the Buddha's family, i.e., bodhisattvas.
Oh my God.
Ah,
Those are birds.
you're right. I think sometime we should just have a slideshow of the illustrations in this book without reading or anything else. Just like 2 minutes a slide and think about them.
I wonder if we will ever be able to appreciate this conversation fully. It's unbearable for many of us even to contemplate the notion that cleanliness can be found in the midst of filth. Yet, cleanliness can only be found in filth. And for those of us who are stuck with the idea that clean
Cleanliness.
yes,
Cleanliness, yeah.
is pure bliss, humanos. And can you continue, please?
Yes, I will. Found in filth. And for those of us who are stuck with the idea that cleanliness is a puritanical state that is entirely independent and separate from filth, emotions, and dissonance, such a statement is so bewildering as to be virtually inconceivable. Son of a noble family, said Manjushri, emotions are the ingredients that make a Buddha. Ignorance, craving, desire, and anger are the Buddha family.
Here, Manjushri offered hope and encouragement by making a mockery of our ideas about clean and dirty. He said that good can only be found in the bad and the ugly. Was he merely giving a politically correct pep talk? or saying things he didn't mean just to cheer us up. No, he was expressing a hard and piercing truth. For some, it is an unbearable truth, but for others, it's the most encouraging thing they have heard. If you plant a seed in the sky, said Manjushri, it won't ever grow into a flower. Likewise, a Buddha cannot arise from the uncompounded state. Buddha, enlightenment, will only arise where there are compound phenomena.
So, Manjushri
Here, it's Manjushri. Juice, like Jus, Manjushri.
Manjushri
Good.
is not denigrating compounded phenomena. He is not saying compounded phenomena are unholy or some kind of stain. What he's saying is that compounded phenomena are impermanent. But even so, we venerate them. For the philosophically minded, this is an important point.
What is non-duality? A little further on, Vimalakirti asked the Bodhisattvas, what is non-duality? Each of them gave an extremely impressive answer. These Bodhisattvas were not so dumb after all. When I think I and mine, that is duality. When I and mine collapse, that is non-duality. Where there is defilement and purification, that is duality. When you go beyond defilement and purification, that is non-duality. Where there are virtuous and non-virtuous deeds, that is duality. When you go beyond the virtuous and non-virtuous, that is non-duality.
I wish those who claim to be Buddhists but are so entangled in their own versions of virtue, morality, and ethics that they look down on and detest the non-virtuous would read this. And I wish I could see the looks on their faces as they realize what it means. If you think this world is mundane, and that another more sublime world also exists, that is duality. And you go beyond the mundane and the sublime, that is non-duality.
These examples become increasingly elaborate and include explanations relating to all 6 paramitas. If the paramita of generosity is understood as non-duality, that kind of generosity will lead you to liberation. The bodhisattva who understands this will also see that liberation itself is generosity. So we say with that there's no separation of the giver, the gift, and the receiver, and I'm thinking that that's what it means. What do you think, Anne?
Not really sure.
Okay. If you long for liberation because you do not like samsara, that is duality. The only way you can actualize non-duality is by going beyond liking liberation and disliking samsara.
Sariputra, Sarakayana monks most finish eating their let's try this again. Sarakarana Monks must finish eating their lunch before midday. If they don't, or if they miss lunch altogether, they would have to wait until breakfast the next day before they can satisfy their hunger. By now, Sariputra's stomach was rumbling. Quickly checking the positions of the sun, he saw that it was nearly midday, but there was no sign of lunch. He began to fidget. Knowing full well that the Sariputra was famished, Vimalakirti launched into another of his relentless scoldings. Sariputra, you are distracted. You can't listen to the readings properly with a distracted mind. Why aren't you listening? This is your opportunity to eat something you have never even thought of before. At this point, Vimalakirti introduces everyone to the fragrant Buddha field where absolutely everything smells divinely delectable. And as it's lunchtime, there too, the aroma must have been equally mouthwatering.
I will just listen from now.
Okay. Who amongst you dare to go to the fragrant Buddha field to pick up some takeaway? Asked Vimalakirti, looking meaningfully at the bodhisattvas. One thing you need to know before we go on is that Manjushri had asked Vimalakirti to demonstrate something to the bodhisattvas. And, as always, Vimalakirti was more than willing to oblige. But to create the right circumstances, Manjushri had to delve into his own extensive repertoire of skillful tricks to ensure that none of the bodhisattvas volunteered.
Firework birds, starbirds. Aren't you embarrassed? Scoffed Vimalakirti as he turned to face Manjushri. Look at your entourage. Not one of them is willing to fetch lunch. But you forget, retorted Manjushri. Buddha said we should never despise the uninformed. Instantly, Vimalakirti created an avatar of himself in the form of a beautiful golden bodhisattva. Go to the fragrant Buddha field and circumambulate Tathagata's Ganhatamakata, he said. Prostrate to that Buddha, pay homage to him, and beg him to give you the leftovers from his lunch. Then bring it here. Vimalakirti's avatar followed his orders to the letter.
The fragrant Buddha field is quite different in our world, and its inhabitants were fascinated by Vimalakirti's Bodhisattva avatar, who looked as alien as to them as E.T. looks to us. The avatar prostrated and paid homage to Tathagata Gataku Kana Kamnuta Kuta, then begged the Buddha for his leftovers, which he said would be extremely beneficial in our world.
I come from the world blessed by Buddha Sakyamuni, said the avatar. The people of our world love mediocrity and anything low class, inferior, or kitschy. You could say that I come from a world that lacks all good taste. The Tathagata Gandhotama Kuta's disciples only knew the highest teachings, and as they had no idea what reference or comparisons even were, they certainly couldn't understand the concept of mediocrity.
What can you mean? They asked. Here in Vimalakirti's world, we are taught to be contemptuous of mediocrity and bad taste. But the attitude of Tathagata Gandhotamakuta and his disciples in the fragrant Buddha field was quite different. In fact, the Tathagata began to sing the praises of the Avatar's alien world and its people who so love the ordinary and the commonplace. He also heaped praise on Shakyamuni Buddha, who, he said, was exceptional, even amongst Buddhas, for having the courage, wisdom, and skill to appear in a realm peopled by such lackluster and pedestrian beings. Who else would have chosen to go there? It was like living on Boulevard Saint-Germain or Rue Saint-Honoré and doing all your shopping on the Champs-Élysées.
Tathagata Gandhotamakuta explained to his disciples that the avatar was a manifestation of one of Shakyamuni's disciples. This is what a disciple of Shakyamuni looks like. Isn't he magnificent? Yet he comes from a world where people willingly settle for the merely adequate. As he spoke, the Tathagata gathered his leftovers, packed them beautifully, and gave them to Vimalakirti's avatar.
Can you make it a little bigger again, Kim, please? Many of Tathagata's disciples were intrigued by the idea of such an indifferent world, and when it was time for the avatar to go home, they volunteered to return with him. They wanted to see mediocrity for themselves. Like the Japanese who visit India for the thrill of experiencing dust, chaos, dirt, and the fetid stench. Be very careful, said Tathagata. I doubt the people of the Avatar's world will be able to tolerate your beauty and fragrance. You might well send them mad, so tone it down a bit.
Before everyone left, there was a discussion about the difference between how Tathagata Gandhotamakuta and Shakyamuni Buddha taught. One of them taught beings with good taste, and the other taught beings with very bad taste. But what is meant by bad taste and what is mediocrity? Specifically, what makes our world so comparatively prosaic? As they talked, it became clear just how difficult it is to teach the undiscerning, which Tathagata Gandhotamakuta demonstrated when he spoke at length of his immense admiration for Shakyamuni Buddha's exceptional ability to teach at a pedestrian level. He even praised the very mediocrity of Shakyamuni's teachings.
So I have a question here before we just had the paragraphs about non-dualism and all of that being one thing, and then here we are talking about the pedestrian students and the non-pedestrian students. I I don't understand. Like, I thought we solved that. Like, we kind of put that to rest, and then here we are doing the same thing, but giving different characters to it.
I think it comes back to the idea of both the relative and the absolute. That there are distinctions between things and there aren't.
Okay.
That's the best way I can understand it.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's kind of a teaching method too, to go over and over and over stuff.
okay. So I'm at before everyone left. Is that where I'm at, Kim?
Yes,
Is before
that's
everyone
where that's where we are.
Before everyone left, there was a discussion about the difference between how Tathagata Gandhata and Shakyamuni Buddha taught.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No,
Cassie. I'm sorry. We're actually
at this
the
point.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay. At this point, the Vimalakirti Sutra seems to be examining taste and class, teaching those who love mediocrity as well. It is like trying to introduce a man from mainland China who dresses head to foot in Versace underwear, Versace shirt, Versace hat, Versace perfume, to the concept of good taste. How can you convince him that he would not look far more elegant in a simple white t-shirt, blue jeans, and a gray scarf, rather than in Versace's multicolored confections? You can't, because the Versace fan is only interested in buying the entire collection of brands that are instantly recognizable and extremely expensive. To persuade such a person to develop a sense of elegance is far from easy.
Donna? She gone? She's here.
Okay, I guess I'll go then if Donna's not there. Teachings like karma, reincarnation, generosity, discipline, and mindfulness all fall into the category of mediocre teachings. By now, you are probably wondering what is meant here by mediocre. Yes, from what I can make out, for Vimalakirti, mediocre teachings say things like, if you are bad and act badly, you will suffer and go to hell. If you are good and your actions are good, you will experience bliss and go to heaven. If you feel desire, you should tame it. And if you get angry, you should control your anger, then get rid of it. Mediocre teachings are those that make stark judgments and clear distinctions, and they are given to people who can only chew and digest mediocre information. From this point of view, all the Buddha's step-by-step teachings and methods fall into the category of mediocre teachings. That's a hell of a statement.
This man is full of hellish statements.
But I don't know that he's being that critical about the Buddha in calling them that, because at some point it seemed to say that he even praised the very mediocrity of Sakyamuni's teaching. So he's recognizing probably the purpose, to get to everyone of the teachings. See what I mean?
Yeah, there's definitely value, he's saying, to the teachings and to that mediocrity, because you got to learn to walk before you can run, kind of thing. But it's a pretty serious, well, not serious, it's an interesting statement to say that all of Buddha's teachings are mediocre or mediocrity. But I guess it also starts to put the pin in the map to say that there are things beyond the mediocrity, and there's something other than just the dualities to deal with.
So I'm going to make an exaggerated example here because I'm trying to understand this too. Does this mean like that I need to speak MAGA if I want to talk to MAGA?
Well, don't do that.
Burton Russell said you ought to be able to explain anything to a 10-year-old.
Yeah, but MAGA is.
But isn't it, if you're sitting there talking to MAGA, you don't want to start with examples from Immanuel Kant about how
Right.
to recognize good and evil. You do want to address things at the level that's accessible to the person that you're dealing with. So in that sense, yeah, the mediocre approach seems to be the only way to start this. But by naming it, and I could be wrong here, but by naming it mediocre, it has that implied understanding or promise that there is something other than just mediocre.
And the judgment of it being mediocre, we're speaking from a judgment mind, not a compassion mind. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, this seems very judgmental. He's very high and mighty about Pracitce.
Right.
He's very high and mighty about what he believes is elegant versus what other people believe are elegant. And where does he get off? I mean, we've already said this is an equal playing field.
But if I'm wearing
you could say it without the judgment language, I think, because Ed just did.
That's because I wear Jordache jeans and not Versace.
And if you didn't have the surgery scar, you'd have your gray scarf on.
That's
there
right.
You go. Italian silk.
Exactly.
And if given a cashmere, scarf, I like it. It's not like that's not soft and wonderful and luxurious.
But if in the mediocre teaching, they're making, they're making distinctions about that scarf, if what comes out of that is the understanding that a scarf made of silk, made of cotton, made of polyester, God forbid, it can still serve the same purpose and can still be of value to a person who sees the mediocrity in it, but also sees the non-mediocre in terms of how it can be used and what the intent is, and how to maybe lose those distinctions of judgment. If it's cold and I need a scarf, hopefully I would be able to understand from the mediocre teachings that take what the scarf is that's there and wrap my throat and be warm.
I think that's really true, that to me, the whole thing is about, not putting yourself above, not seeing yourself, not holding on to these fixed views of what's good and bad and right and wrong and mediocre and elegant.
There's an idea of skillful means, which is upaya, which is kind of finding the right way of conveying something for the situation or doing the right thing as needed. And Vimalakirti it seems like mediocre is almost like skillful means, finding what's needed.
For example, A mediocre method for weaning the Chinese man off his obsession with Versace is to take him to Paris or Rome and introduce him to a circle of kind, self-assured people who are truly elegant. As the Chinese man spends more and more time with his new friends, they will gently discourage him from hanging out with the nouveau riche and show by example that slavishly dressing in flashy, expensive brands will never bring him the self-confidence for which he longs. Slowly, step by step, their kindness and natural poise will lure him away from his Versace obsession and towards a more refined style. And this is exactly what the mediocre teachings do. They lure us towards the higher truths through indirect teachings. For many of us, this method is our only hope of ever approaching the higher truths. Yet we do so love mediocre teachings. We cling to them and cannot do without them, which is why, out of his great compassion, the Buddha gave so many.
Doesn't that seem like skillful means?
It would be so
Right.
much better if they just said skillful means. I was replacing that as that was said, and I was just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Instead of, oh, that's judging mind. Oh, that's putting somebody down.
I agree, Cassie.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
And I think in this writer's attempt to be mediocre, he's being very judgmental.
Just want to see how much more. Okay. But we're on 79. And I'm going to write that down. And we're on Ananda. So this is a good place to stop, don't you think, and do our writing or whatever we do. 7 p.m. Page 79, Ananda. Great progress. Okay, so let's write until, let's write for 11 minutes, okay? Till 8:15.
Yeah, if I wanted to send a message specifically to one person,
Oh,
I can't see how to do that.
they've changed the method, and
Oh, of course.
depending on what and the way you do it is I'm not even seeing it now. Oh,
Yeah, I
here.
didn't either.
If you click on participants, you see a little blue thing that says new chat. Click on participants at the top,
Okay.
and then you see different, and then well, it kind of goes back and forth, and then you can click on new chat, the blue thing with the pencil and the little, do you see that?
No, but I don't want to take up any more time. Let me just really quickly, Milan, I want you to know I was not laughing at you. I was just I have the same issues with a lot of words where I can't get them at all. And I really love to listen to you read, so please don't let my reaction keep you from reading. It was
Oh no,
rude and I'm sorry.
no,
But
it was not. No, no, no worries. I was laughing at myself. Sometimes that happens, and it
oh,
had happened before that I start laughing and can stop.
I
So
do too.
no
But
worries.
that's
Okay.
that cleanliness is a really goofy word because
Yes.
it has the word clean in it. So, and I guess we have a lot of words like that in English that aren't
Yeah.
aren't phonetic like that.
Yeah, English is just impossible. And I've spoken it all my life, so I can say that.
And I understand that Spanish is a lot more obedient than English.
Anyway, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't upset anything.
Okay, we'll write. Do you want to share?
Oh, of course. This is just meanderings, so please don't expect anything.
You know, I had a writing teacher who said we never should apologize before or even after we write something. Just
I
do
think
it.
that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Just do it.
Yeah. Okay. It seems to me that all we are reading is fairly difficult to understand, but then it is not. I love that Vimalakirti just appears, usually out of nowhere, and proceeds to disrupt the teachings of whomever is there by saying, "You're not doing it right. Here is what you need to know, or should be thinking, or must grasp." The man has more chutzpah than any other person I have come across. It amuses me that he can make those pronouncements and then everyone wants to think the way he does with very little dissension. I think that Vimalakirti really wants is a knockdown, drag out debate on the subjects he makes pronouncements about. As time goes on, I feel that although he has strong opinions and wants people to pay attention, where to go? Wants people to pay attention to him, I think he really wants to be challenged.
I'll read.
Cassie. Oh, okay. Go on, Len.
Okay, made a mix of prompts. Pure love, natural love, diligent love, non-dual love. Sometimes I dream of having had the opportunity to love, but the opportunity is right here, right now. It seems that I am still carrying the weight of something that my arms and back are not holding anymore. My spirit becomes judgmental.
Cassie, you want to read?
Sure, I was going to go since you had kind of called on me too. I didn't write much. So, the pitfalls and traps of duality. Opening statement about gender. No man, no woman, not clean or dirty, or clean puritanical righteousness. If you plant a seed in the sky, said Manjushri, it won't ever grow into a flower. And this is the quote. Likewise, a Buddha cannot arise from the uncompounded state. Buddha and enlightenment will only arise when there are compounded phenomena. So this is what I'm trying to understand. That dualism is the ability to see half of a picture, and that enlightened activity can only arise when we look at both sides or experience both sides. I'm glad that we started back at the beginning on page 17 because this quote came to me there and it fits right in here, like we're still talking about the same thing. Meditate and don't meditate at the same time. Otherwise, you're not doing it right. And there's our duality again, or our non-duality.
Could you see that too with photography, like compose and not compose? You know, neither works just by itself.
And I've also been thinking about like if I'm offering, like in our Bodhisattva vow, and I'm making an offer, if that offer has a burden attached to it, then is it really an offer, or is it just like putting on that name? You know, and like, so if an offering can just be in the flow of where compassion is, then it doesn't take from. So I'm looking at where that originates in me.
Yeah, if you think you're making an offering, something's a little off.
Exactly, then you're not.
I'll read mine. It's short. Mediocre certainly was triggering. Is it a matter that Buddha wanted to end suffering and Vimalakirti wanted to elevate our understanding of the Dharma? I look forward to reading the sutra now and seeing if all the author is speaking of is really there. I missed that when I last read it. Would I rather be Vimalakirti or Buddha? Who was smarter? Who was better? Who was a better purveyor of the Dharma? Is it a contest?
And the gold medal goes to.
Do you want to read, Emily?
Sure. There's not much time for a clinician to speak with a patient, to get to know a long history and understand another's fears, desires, blind spots, and resignations, and confront all the things that arise within a clinician's heart in response to this history and artwork of a human being. There is a lot so easily condemned in a patient who rests in magga, thought, and emotion. I am lucky to have found the bridges that unite all of humanity, the lights to shine into the dark, to illuminate the possibilities and the realities of all that comes with a patient encounter. Sometimes a spark of spoken language, a gesture, or a silence is what is needed. Nothing is ever truly certain other than perhaps the continued unfolding, the blossoming, and decay of each person's moments that we share, sometimes as terrible as a rotting fruit, and sometimes as unforgettable as a sunflower glowing in the sunset. I am looked to as a teacher by some, and yet I have done more learning than teaching every day without even trying.
I think Ed is going to speak. It's so nice to have you back, Ed.
Thank you. This was just about the right amount of time. This is a challenge. My voice is going. I got a headache, but this is worth it. I was looking as we got closer to the end. What popped into my head is that I almost wanted to read the Cliff Notes, which would have simply said skillful mean. But what was wonderful about this is that in a lot of ways, it was a reiteration of the Shin Ming and all of its content that's in there and all the lessons of that marvelous piece of poetry. From the duality and the value that can be gained from the thrill of chaos and division, and that mediocrity is a stepping stone, not a goal, not a goal to be attained, but a stepping stone to be surpassed. And it contains within the description of it that there is the goal to not be trapped in the smallness of being perfect with judgment. That's it.
As you were talking, I naturally equated it to music, and like if mediocrity is the hook line of a pop song and everybody loves it, then why should I be judging it as not an opera?
See, now you got to go get all complicated. Well, there is the rock opera Tommy.
And Rush 2112, which really, changed my life.
Well, does anyone else want to share anything?
Big props for Ed to go into the Paramitas class at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. What time was it in your time zone when you were there?
My day was half over. It was 5 in the morning.
Yeah, dude.
But I had to get up at 4 in the morning to make sure I could remember where to go to find my computer at 5. It was a bit of a challenge, but and I'd had a little bit of a rough night, but well worth it. I think this is going to be a great study.
Yeah. And I just wanted to acknowledge your practice of being there at that hour.
Well, thank you. I don't know any better. I don't have good judgment. I just got up. See, that's my Shin Shin Ming. I didn't say it was a bad time or it's a good time. I just got up and did it.
Thank you for bringing the birds with you. The sounds are so beautiful.
Yeah, they're getting expensive though because they're a union and I got to pay them to chirp on command now.
I bet they missed you when you went to California.
I hope they didn't. But as I think about it now, someone said that to me. I was gone half a month with California. I didn't realize how long that was. And then being in a hospital room where all you have is cold air and somebody asking, can we take your temperature? And your answer didn't matter because they're going to do it anyway. But it's great to be back here with you guys. And I'm slowly making my entry back into what I thought was normal. So I'll see some of you guys on Thursday, but I'll be there as a participant. Someone else I think will be facilitating. And we'll just keep rocking and rolling.
I'm glad you're back.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah, really wonderful to be with you. Good night.
Night, everybody.
Donna, are you there?